Hello and welcome to firstly my channel Peaceful Rebellion and
Alternative actions alternative interactions, in fact.
we're going to have some alternative actions today. That's what
We
we're
are.
going for. So today Gary and we've decided that it's time to create a bit of like a popcorn show, a safe space where we can just talk about stuff that probably we all know. Gary's got lots of information. He's done a lot of deep dives on these things, and I've done my bit as well. So we're going to talk, we're going to see where it goes to, but we're going to start by talking about flat Earth. Indeed. Is it flat? Is it round? What is it? What do you reckon, Gary? Is it flat? Is it round? What the hell is it?
Well, I did actually do a video series on this when I first came onto YouTube, flat, round, or neither. And it's actually neither, but it's also flat, which doesn't help your question whatsoever, does it?
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, we're on a flat plane.
Good.
The Firmament behind me, if you drew a level across that, it's flat.
Yeah, yeah.
So in artwork we see it from the 18th century or 16th century, whenever this wood thing was done. My research, and it's only my research, clearly points to us being on a flat plane that doesn't move in the way that we're told, as in a spinning ball. Now we do move, but that's another degree or five further on to the flat Earth. So there is a movement, but it's not the kind of movement that we're told, as in a spinning ball going through space. And I think we were just talking about that before, weren't we? Is it 66,000 miles per hour per second or something strange?
It's I know that they say that the Earth is spinning, rotating at, I think it's 666 miles per hour or something at the equator, whatever. I
Yeah.
don't know. But they had to get the 666 in. I mean,
Yes.
if you're going to if you're going to do a job, you got to do it well. Get the 666 in. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, from what I've seen, and there's been endless. And there was a test that somebody did a long time ago on the barges, on the canals. I don't know if you saw the very original man who said the Earth is not round, it's flat, and it was a long time ago. And he was just using the canal as a measure of, like, there isn't any curvature there. But now, with the advent of laser, now they've done so many experiments just to show, hang on, the curve isn't there. And let's say this, it isn't the curve that they tell us that we have. The what they say the Earth is and the size of it isn't. It just doesn't work. It doesn't work, and it's been shown. The only time it didn't show was on that documentary that they made for Netflix, where they went and on purpose to show that and they only interviewed lunatics. All the people they interviewed were like mad as hell, and it didn't work. But it does work every other time except on Netflix.
Yeah. Yeah. So, what got me into flat Earth initially was, I don't want to use the word I was just waking up, but I was just becoming aware of things, and I was starting to look at things like straw man, and the Cesta V Act and some of the sort of, like, how can I put it? Some of the nice introductory things that, although are not particularly nice, are actually not very toxic in any way, shape, or form. They're just nice introductions to what we now understand as, So I've just watched like a Straw Man or Cesta V type program, and I'm starting to try and get into that. And this is back when YouTube actually had content that actually had a bit of bite on it before it was all removed. So for everybody watching YouTube now, and if you've been on for a long while, you'll know that 90% or more of the programs or people we followed back then no longer exist.
Absolutely.
And also on the internet, 90% of what we could have searched for back then does no longer exist either. It no longer exists. So we are seeing a wiping of the information to try and stop people being able to easily search. And it was fairly easy 2013, 14, 15, 16 to...
Brilliant. It was brilliant. You could spend hours finding the most incredible information, mad information as well, but incredible. It's like, whoa, fantastic. Not anymore.
Yeah, no, not anymore. So this video comes up saying Stephen Hawkins, you know, the genius in the wheelchair, who's it's also, sorry to tell everybody, he's a bit of a fraud. Didn't happen.
It wasn't even him in the end, was it?
No. I think they went through a couple of 3 actors in the end, didn't they? You know,
his teeth kept changing.
Yeah. He's just had some dental work, Gordon. Come on, be fair. The guy's just gone to the NHS and had
obviously because he was very concerned. He was concerned about his appearance. I think, I need to have my teeth done. So I look at
Yeah. Because not being able to chew means that you need teeth, doesn't it? And not being able to talk means you need teeth. Yeah. Anyway, the video came up and said Stephen Hawkins is a liar. His maths is wrong. You know, and that triggered me. You know, at the time that the Mr. Smith, you know, Neo and Mr. Smith thing, Agent Smith jumped into me, and I was going to defend Stephen Hawkins. How dare they talk about Stephen Hawkins like a national icon, you know? And yeah, so. But fundamentally, this video showed a laser beam being shot over one of the Great Lakes from, I think, Canada to Chicago, shoreline. And they showed all the math, 8 inches per mile squared of curvature that we should have. And so they shot this laser beam, I think, about a foot over the water. And they actually had a boat on the far shore with a mirror on the back of the boat, and they did it all, and they got the reflection back off it, so you know, but there was no curvature. And Stephen Hawkins' maths was wrong, and that sent me on a probably 3-year dive into flat Earth, and it probably took me around 8 months, 9 months before I would even accept that it was flat, despite all the information.
Yeah. How did it make you feel when you come across this and then you keep getting these proofs that are saying, hang on a minute, everything I've ever believed is wrong about that. How does it make you feel?
I think what happens is personally, you go into your everybody's wrong and I'm still right. You know, and it's that cognitive dissonance, isn't it? Of I'm not prepared to look at myself. Stockholm syndrome, you know, these two very powerful control mechanisms that are placed upon us and we place upon ourselves. I was not going to look at myself in the mirror. I was not going to go there because everything I was seeing was wrong. Clearly was wrong. But the seed of doubt was there. And, you know, some nights you'd lay there in bed and it'd be going round in your head and you'd be thinking, oh, but what if they're right? You know, oh, God, you know. But the more I went into it, the more I realised that actually the globe and space as well, because let's not forget this, that the point in which I was fully aware that I decided that we could be living on the flat plane, it calls into question everything, you know.
Everything. Yeah.
And when I finally did accept it was flat and start look at all sorts of other things that came off it, but fundamentally the flat part, it was flat. I can remember thinking that this was the biggest red pill in the world. There was nothing bigger than the fact that it's flat. Nothing bigger. This was the pinnacle. And how clever was I? And how stupid was I at the time to think how clever was I, thinking that I'd actually found the Holy Grail, when actual fact, all these are is stepping stones of knowledge to enable you to, I don't want to use the word upgrade, but upgrade the mind to the next level where you're then able to accept the next thing that comes in to enable you to start going up the steps or the ladder of truth. And it's one rung at a time, and some rungs seem bigger than others, but fundamentally they're all little steps as we go up.
Yeah, I agree entirely. And as you said, if you accept that the Earth isn't round, it's not a globe, it's not what we're being sold, it changes everything because it involves everything. And for me, it is a big rung on the ladder. It's a massive rung because what we've been sold is, and how many times have we heard, we're just this little spinning ball in insignificant little speck of dust in nothing, and we are nothing, and we're just an accident and all of that. And of course the model of the being in the dome is we're here, we're special, we have a purpose here, we've been created, something has created this. And so suddenly it brings into our perspective God, or creator, if you want. I know you prefer creator, the creator of something had to make this. This doesn't happen by accident, it just doesn't happen by accident. Let me tell you what Gary, what really did it for me. I looked at the time when I was starting to look, and remember, I woke up, to use that expression, about 20 years ago now. And as you say, YouTube was filled with stuff, and there were some brilliant researchers who were doing such good work. And then they were all attacked and thrown out and everything. But the stuff that we're doing, I was watching it going, okay, I can see that. Okay, right, fair enough. But I haven't done it, so I'm just taking their word for it. And then somebody said, well, the gravity story, because gravity is something that we've been sold, by Isaac Newton and the apple and all of that. And they said, it's not gravity at all. It's not gravity. And I was thinking, what do you mean gravity? We've got formulas and everything. And he said, okay, so the world's a globe, and the reason that we don't fly, it's spinning, and the reason we don't fly off is because of gravity. You go, of course, absolutely. And so the Earth at the equator, the fattest bit, is spinning at, I think, is it 1,000 kilometers an hour and 666 miles an hour? I don't know. Anyway, very fast. But the gravity's just set perfectly, so we neither fly off nor are we crushed. It's just, everything's perfect. It's the what's that? It was neither hot nor cold. It was just perfect. Anyway, that's what they call this Earth. And he said, so what happens on the North Pole? And I was thinking, do you know in the playgrounds when you used to have the roundabout, and if you had the misfortune to be on the roundabout when the bully came in and started spinning it, and you were like, whoa, and the blood rushing to your head and everything, that was on the outside. But if you were clever enough, you would just jump in the middle on the roundy bit and just sit there, and you would go around like that. Nothing, no centrifugal force, anything. So he said, gravity doesn't change from the equator to the North Pole. So if you go up to the North Pole where there's no centrifugal force, you should be squashed flat. And I went, well, bugger me. It's right, because I'd experienced it. I think if you've experienced that, I know what centrifugal force is, and I know how it works. And so imagine the globe, imagine the centrifugal force at the equator. Imagine it. And then you get to the North Pole, and you're going like that. So that was what did it for me. That was when I thought, yeah, I think there's something in this.
Yeah. And this is actually something I've never spoken about on my channel yet. And so this is gravity. So Gordon brings up some really interesting points. Is that when you realise you're under a dome, hence, I have the Flammarion imagery, because we're under a dome in something that's not spinning. But when I discovered gravity was a fake, that was another big one.
Yeah.
And so what we actually have is density, buoyancy, and electromagnetism. Okay. They're the three forces that can be calculated and worked out. Because I also learned that the gravity, if you put it into a computer, it won't get it right. And so they have to use different kinds of calculations to calculate different things as such. And at the time, I'm not going down into that one because the different things and the things is enough for me. But the density was really interesting. And I can remember, and you can probably Google this, everyone, or find it. I mean, it used to be easy to find. It's probably not now. Is they had this cup and they put different fluids in it and coloured them differently. And then they dropped objects into these fluids. So these fluids have naturally gone into their density layers. And then they dropped something into it which had a buoyancy. So it could be a nut, a bolt.
Mm-hmm.
And they would drop that and it'd go all the way and it'd hit the bottom colour and it'd sit on top. It wouldn't hit the bottom of the glass, it would sit above it because that bottom liquid was denser than the density of the buoyancy of the nut sitting on top. And so they would drop all sorts of different things and they'd have on every single level a different sort of, it might be a nut as in a fruit nut, or it could be a piece of plastic, it could be some wood. And again, woods have different densities. So balsa wood will float as a piece of old teak might sink.
Yeah.
But they're both wood.
Mm-hmm.
You know? So it's density and buoyancy that is the key to all of this. And also electromagnetism. And it was the electromagnetism that took me on to toroidal fields and everything else eventually. But it was something I put to one side because I was not prepared and could not mentally deal with that at that time. But the easiest way to describe electromagnetism is you blow up a balloon, a plastic balloon, and you put it against the wall, you let go of it and it'll fall to the ground. You then rub it on your hair if you've got some, stick it on the wall and it will stick, the balloon will stick to the wall and not fall down onto the floor. And all you've done is you've given that balloon an electric charge which enables that action of the electrical conductivity to connect, to create a connection that is more powerful than the density of the balloon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Hopefully I described that correctly, but it's quite a deep subject, and it's one that really does take a lot of getting your head around initially, and so you have all these subsections coming off flat Earth, which is why I thought it was the golden bullet. Oh my God, we found it. I'd always been atheist, never believed in anything, and certainly didn't believe in God. And one of the early things that I came across was, we've all heard of the Big Bang Theory, and actually one of my favourite comedy programs is the Big Bang Theory.
Oh yeah. Mm.
But when you look at who created the Big Bang Theory, now everybody would say, well, scientists created that theory. No, it was a Roman Catholic Jesuit priest. Hang on a minute. A Roman Catholic Jesuit priest came up with a Big Bang Theory, which is totally opposite to the biblical story given off by the same group of individuals.
Sure. Hmm. What was that about?
Yeah.
Mm.
So you then start to see where the stories start to come from and where we get this. Now, I've seen a video clip as well of a very, very old lady. I think she was nearly 100. And when she was at school in maybe the 1910s, 15s, something like that, they obviously taught everybody Bible, but they also taught them that the earth was flat, as in the Bible. Yeah. Okay, with a dome over it, or firmament, as it's called. And later on in life, when they'd gone to the moon and everything else, this lady, she had forsaken her faith because it had been taken away from her. And this guy was with her, and he started to show her and talk to her about flat Earth, and she burst into tears, and she said, "So they taught me right when I was at school, and I was always right, but I had been persuaded not to follow my true path. I hadn't listened to my gut feeling, and I'd left God. You know, now obviously I have different names for God as Gordon does, calls God, but in this instance, it was purely a biblical God experience of faith via the book." And she actually cried because she felt that when she did pass, that everything she'd been taught and felt as a youngster growing up that had been bashed out of her by the system had come back into her. And I thought that was a very powerful thing.
Let me expand on that, because the story that you're telling is the story that, and I've got to give a shout out to this guy. He's called Flat Earth Dave. The reason he's given himself the name Flat Earth Dave is because he does an absolute ton of interviews, like 2 or 3 interviews a week. And the title of his videos in YouTube is Flat Earth Dave. So when you type in Flat Earth now, before you used to just get debunk videos like millions. Now he's coming up, and it's causing him a lot of problems. So Flat Earth Dave, he's called David White. He interviewed that woman, right? And I think it was that what he did the interview, and he said, look, he put out to his audience, and because obviously the flat Earth they must crush it. It's too big. It can destroy everything for them if they're not careful. So he said to his followers, go to old people's homes, start interviewing old people, like people who were 100, and you'll find out that they didn't stop teaching flat Earth until quite a way into the 20th century, quite a way. And he said, like a week after the pandemic started, and of course all the old people's houses were closed down, right? He said, I don't know, call me a conspiracy theorist, but maybe. The same applied when he said, you know, what were those towers that they made, not towers, like stones they made with all of the different languages on, talking about the plan for the New World Order.
Yeah, something stones. Yeah, they're in America, weren't they?
Yeah,
the Georgia Guidestones.
Georgia Guidestones. That's the one. So when they were created, what they did was they had a view hole, and from that view hole you could see the pole star. And basically what they tell us, you know, going back to we're traveling at this speed, this Earth's spinning at this speed, then the universe is spinning, and then the sun's, honestly, it's just mad. And with all of that movement, what he was saying was that the pole star hasn't never moved. It's been in the center. All it does, it moves. It's got this tiny little variation, but virtually nothing. And he said to the people, so the Georgia Guidestones have been up for like 30 years now or whatever. In that time, according to science, the pole star should be 20 degrees out. But it's not. If you go and look, it's it. He said, and then a week later, they were blown up. And he said, I think they're watching me. You know, so that guy, I would recommend, just because that's his speciality, flat Earth. That's what his purpose is, to bring that to light. But he did this interview with the girl I see her a lot now, who's talking to ChatGPT, and she keeps saying, I think she has an expression, stay in the first. And when that tells GPT that it can't give you fluff, it can't, you know, because sometimes it'll say, well, I'm going to give you this, but I've got to be, blah, 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 blah. And she's saying, stay in the first. And they were asking about all of this, about gravity. And it said exactly what you were saying. Gravity is not gravity. That's a lie. It's density, and it's also frequency. And it went on to say that that's how they were able to build the structures that they used to build, because they used frequency and they understood how to manipulate it and all of that, which we know. But the fact that it's coming from AI as well, in a very, very like really clear way, you know, no There's nothing unclear about it. It's like saying, "Yep, this is how it is." Whether you trust AI or not, it doesn't really matter. But it's just interesting that all of that comes out.
Yeah, it is. And going back to the stars' positioning, you can take maps from the sea, captain's ship logs, with a sextant, which measures the angle of the stars and everything else where you are, and that will still work today exactly the same way as it would have worked in the 1600s, 1500s, 1400s, or 1300s, you know. And so in 600 or 1,000 years even, those stars have not moved.
Exactly. So how could that be?
You know, these are things that, you know, science can't explain, you know, because again, if we're in a bang and everything's going out, there must be some expansion and there must be some movement from point A to point B.
Exactly.
But we don't ever see that.
No, and they say, well, it's so minute in terms of the whole of the universe. It makes no difference, and therefore we can never perceive change. But you know, I mean, I just recently heard they said, oh, the universe isn't expanding anymore; it's contracting, right? And it's like just throw out this shit like this, whatever, you know. Like, all right, have you been there? Have you been to the edge? Have you had a look? You know, have you measured it? You know, they just honestly, they feed us absolute crap. You know, it's a mushroom management. They just feed crap, and it's like we'll give you something different. We'll give you a new story or whatever. But you know that the flat Earth, it leads to everything. But then we come to flat Earth. If the Earth's flat and there's a dome, and we see this proven so many times, when, you know, how many times do we have to see a rocket going up and it's going wee, and then suddenly we hear like this and it stops spinning, or we watch a rocket going up like this and it's going boing boing, just like a surfboard bouncing off the firmament. And they had all of those nuclear testing that they did up
Operation Fishbowl.
Yeah, trying to break the firmament.
Yeah.
You know, so it leads to, hang on a minute then, did we go to the moon or not? You know, which we were just referring to in the earlier the conversation before we started. And when you look, and it's something that you said, and it's very true. You know, one of the things that we've got to learn is patience. And we are all very impatient. We all want to know what does that mean? What is that? I want people to decipher it. Come on, get the gematria out and everything. If we just wait, most times we're going to find out what it is, and it becomes patently obvious. Look, all the red flaggy things. At the time, it's like, "Whoa, that's terrible," and then later on, you go, "What?" It's just all of these things appear, and it's the same with, you know, when you look at the footage of the moon now, and not only that, but the stuff that they've done in space that they used to film. Like, you see it, you think, you know, and people used to go, "Wow, that's incredible! Look, they're floating, and he's on a bit of a tube and everything," you know. And then, as you mentioned, then you're watching something and you think, "Hang on a minute, is that a mouse? Is that a mouse that I'm seeing scuttling around the space station?"
Yeah.
Outside, not inside, outside.
Yeah.
It's absolutely, it's a joke. It's a joke. What do you make of that?
Yeah, no, I officially now I understand it. Is the moon is no longer in space. The moon is now in low Earth orbit, and has oxygen around it and an atmosphere.
Okay, so that's why the mice can get there.
Yeah. So I think that's changed recently, or recently enough, and I'm pretty sure I saw that a couple of years ago or a year ago, and obviously just disregarded it with the importance it deserved. But the moon landing is really, really interesting. I have actually done a video on it, and I was very careful on what I did on the video, because you can only go so far. But we look at it today in our modern way. So today, if a spacecraft went onto the moon, they would be able to beam pictures down to us. Beam, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And that we would accept that being our current technological advancement to where we are. If you go back to the 60s, 70s, and even 80s, everything was on film, cine film.
Mm-hmm.
And what we forget these days is, particularly a lot of the youngsters who have never really understood this, because they've never needed to, because they've been born in a digital world, you know, is I can remember taking photographs and having to go down to the developer,
Kodak,
and wait 2 or 3 days for the film to be developed, so I could then go back and collect my photographs. So when we went on holiday, we'd be snapping away, not knowing if it had actually taken a photograph of the holiday or something had gone wrong and the entire film was knackered. And it was only when you got back from the holiday that you put your films in that you got your photographs back. It was like, oh, thank God they were right. That it all worked,
sure.
you know.
Sure.
But we also, if we went somewhere that was a bit exotic or hot, or there was big extremes in temperatures or whatever, the film wouldn't last, would it, Gordon? You'd get bleaches out, or some of it would fail, and it could be a real big problem. Now, when they went to the moon, they only had film.
Mm-hmm.
The film camera itself, if you actually look at how they built it, has actually got washing machine parts on it. And they've actually traced the washing machine parts to patented washing machines of the time.
Yeah.
Because obviously back then washing machines were far more robust and would work in space, or the parts of them. So we have a spacecraft going to space, and I can talk about about how rockets don't work in a vacuum and everything else like that, if you really want me to. But fundamentally, spacecraft goes to the moon, lands on the moon. The images we get is of somebody walking out of the lunar craft who's too big to have been able to get in there, get dressed with all what's needed, and get out with all the stuff that's going around. And in later times, they had the Mars rover, and they couldn't have physically fitted the Mars rover inside the craft.
It was underneath the set. It was hitched underneath.
Yeah, that's the one. So we have the first steps onto the moon via a camera that would have had to been physically placed on the moon, and somewhere would have had to physically press the record or play button for the mechanical system to work. So that's our first question: who filmed Armstrong getting out of the capsule?
And you know that they did answer that. You know that they answered that, and what they said is that they had. I mean, the things they had an automatic boom arm that swung out and went like that, and therefore they could film from there. It was all very technical. Yeah.
That sounds amazing. Yeah. The thing is, though, on no photographs of that capsule is there any boom arm, is there?
No, and it must have been a bloody long one, because it was quite a way back. But that's what they said anyway, and that's what people believed.
Yeah, and that's absolutely fine. So we get these two guys. We have film of them jumping around, photographs of them on the moon, the full works. They then clamber back in. I can't remember how many hours they were in on the surface of the moon, but I seem to remember it's something like 33 hours, or you know.
It'll be a 33. Yeah.
It's something like that. You know, it's they spent quite a while there. You know, and then they take off, and the boom that we've now discovered is on the thing actually extends to allow them to take off and can pan at the same time up as they leave.
Gary, they took it off the boom and they just placed it on the moon.
Did they have a bit of rope on it then, so that when they got so far they then pulled it along so they could pull it back in?
No, it was no. But it was. Then it just beamed it back to Earth.
Oh,
Afterwards,
that's
it was
good.
beamed
Right.
back to Earth. Yeah.
Yeah. Because this is the beam back to Earth bit that was really interesting. The next day, and please Google this, everybody. Please Google it because you can see it. So they land on the moon, say on the 22nd, and on the 23rd, on the front pages of all the newspapers, and I could be a day or two out on this one, but bear with me. The 23rd, every front page in the world of the newspapers has got this image of them on the moon. The only problem is the film with the images is still in space and doesn't come down for another few days.
Exactly.
So how did they get a film that needed to be developed that probably wouldn't have lasted through the Van Halen belts anyway if such things existed? I think we can see dome rather than Van Halen belts.
I think it might be another word for it. Yeah.
Yeah. We have the extreme temperatures and the vacuum of space, and yet this film survives. But not only does it survive, they can magically send it to Earth. I mean, it's very, very interesting, and so it really doesn't fit any kind of criteria that we could put together as being logical or make believe. And this goes back to what Gordon was just saying, right? At the moment, what we're seeing, are we actually seeing anything that's logical or make believe, or have we got sucked into the story? Everybody in the 60s who had a TV or had access to a TV was sat in front of the TV. My partner Mel, I've just got a memory of I think at school where they whirled this tiny little TV, and everybody sat in front of this TV watching this thing happen live.
Yeah. And you know what? It's something you said, which the lunar lander. I mean, when you see photos of it, it's covered in gold foil. Yeah, foil. And you can see it's foil because it's like wrinkled and all of that. It's this tiny little thing. And as you said, they all came out with these massive suits on, which they weren't wearing in the inside, so they'd have somewhere to put the suits. They were playing golf. They had golf sticks in it, and they took back a ton of moon rock or whatever. And what's the funniest is in the museum of space, the Space Museum, they've got the suit of the first man who walked on. And they've got this suit, and you look, and it looks minging, but at the bottom, pair of cowboy boots, right? I mean, the sole is a cowboy boot, and you think that probably wouldn't be the right kind of thing to wear. You don't know what the moon's going to be like. Well, we'll just put your best cowboy boots on, okay? But then you've got the first footprint of the man on the moon, which is a boot with lines in like this, and then you see the cowboy boot, which is smooth on the bottom. And what they said is, I mean, they've got an answer for everything, apart from losing on the telemetry data. That's why we've never been back. But they said, because they had the boots, they had some boots on the inside that they put on when they put the suit on, and then they took the boots off again. I was thinking, how many fucking things do they have in that place? Apart from, the other time, the lunar lander underneath is like, how did they manage? It's a miracle, really. I think that's what we have to put it down to.
And we know that cowboy boots work at minus 200 degrees Celsius plus.
Absolutely. Just as the suit does. I mean, clearly, the suit was designed to cope with the when you're in the sun and when you're in the shadow. Yeah, incredible.
Yeah, as does the International Space Station. If you look at how many times it goes light to dark, light to dark, light to dark, light to dark, the expansion and compression of the metal. I mean, I think it could be something like 18 or 20 times a day or something crazy like that, where it's going from 200 degrees to minus 200 degrees to 200 degrees. Well, nothing could survive that. Nothing.
No, and there's a a little bit of a video going around. I've seen it for a while now of another, that where they're not very good. I mean, let's be honest, they're not very good at doing stuff. But I think they know that they're not very good, and they don't really care, because when people are in hypnosis, the emperor can have no clothes on and people see clothes. So they don't need, for people who are in hypnosis, they don't need to do a good job. They just need to give you a semblance of something.
Yeah.
And so there's this shot of this guy doing a spacewalk and everything, and he comes back and he gets in and he pulls the top, the lid, to close the lid, and it's a canvas lid, and it's wobbling like this, and it's a canvas lid. And then the somebody's done a great video where they've got somebody who's closing a door on an airplane, and it's about that thick, and it's going like this and clunk clunk, and this guy's closing a canvas lid on the plane in space. Given the temperatures, do we think a canvas lid is going to be sufficient to keep the heat out or to keep it in?
Clearly it does. So, we're all wrong, and aircraft design is overkill, and
It's
they need NASA to design a canvas aeroplane for everybody to fly in.
Absolutely.
And another one we're going to go on to as well, which is the Challenger disaster.
Oh yeah.
So at some point we went from rockets to rockets with an aircraft strapped to the back of it.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the early space things where they're launching satellites from is quite interesting, particularly the man whose face you can see holding the model up while they're filming it. Yeah,
I remember that one.
Yeah. Now, one of the Challengers exploded. I can't remember, Challenger 8 or something. I don't know.
Can't remember the number. No.
And I watched this live. I was properly in La La Land, and I was quite happy to watch this stuff. And actually, a friend of mine had been, I think, a year or two earlier to the States, and actually watched one of these live. And they were miles back, and I could feel the pressure of it, amazing stuff. When you think about that, they actually were strapping empty vehicles onto a back of a rocket and launching it into space, which then curves, twists, turns, and goes back down. Now, Disney does a very similar thing over their castle. This thing comes up and it goes back down again. And most of the rockets actually land in the Bermuda Triangle.
Yeah, I heard that the other day. Hence the fact that it's out of, let's not go there.
Yeah. But the Challenger goes up, it's turning, it's twisting, and it's turning, it's doing this twist, and it's about to let all the side pod rocket bits and go, so it can then do its thing, and then obviously it's going to be too high so they can't film it. But all it's then going to do is just go down and be remote controlled, flowing back to some airbase. And then later on, when they come back, they would strap it to the back of or underneath a big jet, jumbo jet of some sort. They'd fly it up and they'd release it, and then they would go down and they'd be heroes. Well, this time the remote control rocket system goes wrong and it explodes. And all the astronauts, I think there was 7 or 8 on board.
Yeah.
They all die. Do a little Google search again on this one, and you will find, I think there was 8, that 7 of the 8 are still alive and well. Some of them are doing the exact same job that they did pre-dying on the Challenger with exactly the same name, and some of them just happen to be the identical twin brother of themselves with the same name.
Exactly. I know that they kind of kept the surname and changed the first name or something. That'll do.
Yeah, some didn't even bother. So one of them, I think there was a lecturer. She was a lady. She was a lecturer. She went on the craft, died, and she went back lecturing with the same name, first name and last name. I'm not saying it's the same university, but she's back lecturing under the same exact name. Yeah.
I remember seeing all of that, and of course, where we get to, Gary. I'm sure you've been there. I saw these very early on, and you're like, how very dare they? What? Why isn't mainstream media talking about this? Because this is just ridiculous. And you get all sort of, antsy and worked up and everything. And then over time you realize, they're not talking about it because they're not going to talk about it, because it's not, why would they do that to wake people out of hypnosis? Because people who are in hypnosis are unable to see that. All that they can see, if you show them this and you go, look, and they go, yeah, but that won't be them, because they died. And it's kind of like when somebody's in deep hypnosis, we don't have the skill. I don't have, even though I do hypnosis, I don't have the technique to get these people out of their hypnosis, because it's a self-induced hypnosis that they've given permission to have, given that those that shouldn't be permission to do. So we haven't got the tools to, they've got to actually decide to come out of it, but they can't see it. And it used to drive me mad. I used to think, well, it's like, there's an expression here in Spain, when something's obvious, they'll say white and in a bottle, meaning it's milk. It's white and it's in a bottle. What is it? And that's what I used to feel like. It can't be any clearer. And people go, no, I just can't see it. And that's exactly the truth. They can't. I just can't see it. It used to drive me mad. Doesn't it?
I mean, when we talk about the media, and we go to 9/11, and again, I have got 9/11 one, and I also talk about aircraft. Aircraft don't actually fly with fuel. There's very little fuel in an aircraft. The jets actually burn compressed air from the atmosphere when they're flying along. So every time they put the price up of your ticket, because the oil prices have gone up, it never needed to, because they don't put any fuel in the bloody things anyway. But during the 9/11 again, I'm sat there watching, and I'm watching the BBC live broadcast, and they're talking about obviously the Twin Towers have gone, and they're talking about another building collapsing, which is World Trade Center 7, Building 7. And the BBC are talking about it collapsing. It's collapsed, and oh my God. The problem is, for the BBC, is that building is sat over the woman's shoulder and doesn't collapse for around another 28 minutes, half hour. How can the British Broadcasting Corporation, on a live stream in New York, on the day of one of the most heinous terrorist attacks since probably Pearl Harbor, on American soil, be able to predict a building falling down that was never hit by anything? It fell down out of fear from the other two. They scared it to fall down.
Would it be best just fall down?
Yeah, that's the one. Half an hour before it actually happened. There is only one conclusion I've ever been able to come to with that, is that the BBC and all media corporations were singing off a preordained script.
Yeah.
And what was shown to the public was a pre-arranged film show that when they went live, they got their timings wrong on Building 7. Because we've seen film evidence since from cine cameras, private people, there were no planes in the sky.
Yeah.
There was no plane debris. And we have the poor firemen at the bottom of those buildings who clearly said on camera that there were explosions and detonations, and that's what killed most of them. And when we look at the structure when it's collapsed, the beams are cut at 45-degree angle. I want to say it's pyrite, but it's some kind of detonation.
Yeah.
it's
Yeah,
not
yeah.
pyrite, but it's some kind of
Uh-huh.
thermite type
Thermite. That's the
thermite,
yeah.
and you can see where all the beams are, and the back evidence of Mossad agents being in there for several weeks previously with boxes which were explosives. All the sniffer dogs who were explosive dogs were stopped from going into the buildings during that period. I mean, there's so many things that you can actually point this to,
Yeah.
and just go by coincidence, wasn't it that the Pentagon said that they were 2.3 trillion in the black hole on their finances the day before
The
that
day
fell down?
before.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
Donald
didn't
Rumsfeld, I think it was,
yeah
that
yeah,
said that.
and didn't Building 7 have loads and loads of gold in it that just evaporated once the building fell down?
And it also had all of the computers that held all of the information of the missing money as well.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah. You know,
that's
I recall, Gary. I recall, and you have certainly seen it on the 9/11 thing, because I think probably most people have gone down that rabbit hole. But the man who owned the Twin Towers, who was the luckiest man in the world, for many reasons, he was telling the story about Building 7, and he said, and there'd just been so much loss of life and so much loss. I just said to them, just pull it. And so, right, and this was about Building 7. And people, architects and also people who do demolition said, that is a demolition sentence. That's a name. We pull it.
yeah.
He said, you can't pull a building unless you've spent weeks ahead planting on beams, etc., etc. So that was just, and what's interesting about Pull It is they pulled that video, and it's very difficult to find now. That's been pulled as well. The other thing that made me laugh, and again, at the time you don't see it, in retrospect, looking back, were the amount of experts on the ground just at that time who just happened to be interviewed. Like, I remember the one guy going, yes, well, what happened was the plane entered into the tower and it burst into flames, and it was just, there was so much heat that the beams couldn't support it, and the whole building collapsed because of the heat. And I was thinking, wow, how did he know that? It's just this guy walking by. It just happened to be I don't know, a scientist or something, structural technician. But, what I'm aware of, Gary, and I'm sure that you feel the same, everything in that kind of field, and maybe beyond that, everything is working from a script, has been pre-written, it has been pre-planned, it has been designed, there's a storyboard, and there are actors. In the gut feel that I'm getting now is, and this is what the emissaries keep saying to me, everything is a show. We are watching a show, so stop taking it so seriously. It's a show. That doesn't mean that people don't get hurt. Of course they do. Yeah. But it's a show. We've got to understand that this isn't happening by accident.
No. I mean, if you want to Google the dancing Israelis,
yeah,
after 9/11, that'll take you down a little rabbit hole, to say the least. Google the dancing Israelis and the fact that they all got let off and sent back home. I'm getting more and more detached from this realm. I'm feeling a detachment from it. What I mean by that is, I can see that everything is really smoke and mirrors, and it is a play. Everything is contrived.
Yeah.
And I'm getting to the stage now where I just don't want to waste my energy on the contrivedness of this realm. And I'm feeling less and less connected to this realm in a way that I can't really express other than a feeling. It feels like something has shifted in the last X amount of months. You know, none of this happens overnight. You don't wake up suddenly and go, oh, wow. But the feeling builds and grows and grows and grows. And I'm feeling very, very detached currently from this realm in a strange way. Now, I walk out in nature and I feel that it's lovely. You know what I mean? I'm not talking about the real nature. I mean, I try and go to the beach once a week, once a fortnight at the worst, to get my negative ions, walk along, look at the beach, just be out in nature a bit. I'll often go down to the local woods, sometimes do something called a walk and babble, where I've got a camera and I'm out in nature, and that's real. I'm not disconnecting from that at all. But what I am disconnecting from is the media or the electronic world of spun. The only way I can say it is bullshit.
Sure.
It's spun bullshit, and I just look at stuff now, and it's just like, it's almost as if I've become too cynical. You know, it's like, oh yeah, you know, yeah. So somebody said this, and then somebody said that, and then somebody said this, and somebody said that, and you've got two rival factions of the same truther movement going blah, blah, blah at each other, and I'm just sitting there thinking, why are you doing this? I'm starting to really feel quite distanced from this, but what I am feeling drawn to is what's coming up. And I think what we're seeing at the moment, particularly strongly at the moment, is these people who write the scripts know exactly where everything is, as in where we are timeline wise, perception wise, what's coming up. So when we did the and it wasn't a brilliant and amazing embassies, and we channeled them. Oh, yeah. One of the things that I really took from that, and these are things that have helped me shape me and have pushed me more and more this way, in fact, is really thinking about the shows and what was said and the energy coming from it, is the stars are, you know, however much they pull the steering wheel, we still go back to that cross point, which would be a point within the stars where certain planetary alignments are happening, which is where they've placed their markers on. That means that whatever they're doing with the steering wheel, it's gonna come back. It cannot not. And the steering wheel that they pull, that it's taking more and more effort for them to pull, are the stories that back in the moon days, back at 9/11, they could pull that steering wheel and we'd go off for a very, very long time and we wouldn't even think about it. Yeah. And their ability to pull these things is coming less and less. And so we're narrowing in. It's almost like a cone or a pyramid coming up to the point of, and I guess I'm feeling that. I'm feeling that narrowing of the energies where there's certain points, and I'm more inclined at the moment to be concentrating on these particular points coming up this year, because I think they're key to the script writers no longer being able to write the script at some point.
Yeah, I'm completely with you. Well, as you were talking, I was thinking about, we've got some very big voices in what I would class our side, our world, which is, you know, one of them is Candace Owens, where her expression is everything is fake and gay. And she says that very tongue-in-cheek, but that's the truth. Everything, and I think she uses gay in a different meaning. I don't think it's a meaning that we know, but fake and gay. I'll give you an example. Here in Spain, we've had so many bizarre things happening, but the most bizarre lately has been a train being derailed and crashing into another one. Awful. Lots of people lost their life. 2 days later, another train derailed and crashes. 2 days later, another train. Right? And you know the expression once, well, that's just very unfortunate. Twice, hang on, I can see a bit of a pattern forming. Three times, this is on purpose. You know, and what I'm seeing is that the script writers are doing a really shit job. The worst, and I think it's because they don't have the energy that they used to have. They don't hold sway now. We're moving in the light, and so their writing is becoming scribbled and garbled, and there's no concordance. And that's where I see that the play is so poorly written now. It's becoming obvious, and it's not, and there's a reason for that. The reason is because that's going to give everybody the chance to say, I did see it. Yes, I did see it. Yeah, nobody's going to say, hang on a minute, it wasn't very clear to me what was happening. No, absolutely clear. You know, especially for people who are waking up. It's like, there's something seriously wrong. So I think there's method in the madness of the stories are going to become more and more silly. And exactly like you, what I'm aware of is that the last thing that we need to do is spend time chasing our tails, trying to find what did the emissaries used to say? Don't try and look for sense in the nonsensical.
Yeah.
And that it is nonsensical now. It's gone from, all right, it looked a bit shitty. Now it looks ridiculous. So it's not worth spending the time there. As you say, our focus is forward now. Our focus is what's coming, and bloody good things are coming. Good things. Yeah.
Yeah, they are without doubt. And it's very difficult to express just how positive, and I really do feel super, super positive about where we're heading. And this next stage, I've called it, we're making a cake at the moment. You know, the last few years we've been getting all the ingredients together. That's all we've been doing. We haven't realised it, but all we've been doing for the last few years is getting all the ingredients together. And this year, all the ingredients together, and we've got a cooker, and we've got a mixer, and we've got everything we need is so all our tools are there, and all the ingredients. We're now going for the stage where we're breaking the eggs, and we're starting to add the ingredients in, to start whisking it up. And this is going to happen over the next few months. We're recording this on, I think, the 23rd of January.
Yeah.
It won't go out for me for, several days. We've got a period coming up over the next few days. So in retrospect, that things internationally are heating up, and there could be some bits and pieces happening. You know, I saw today, just before coming on, that the United States has just left the World Health Organization.
Yeah.
I mean, if that's not one of the predictions of what we're saying, that there's big things happening during this period, that is one of the major ones, because that's the nail in the coffin for some of these big NGOs. Whether but it doesn't really matter anymore, because it's about where we're going and making the cake, and we're not making the cake for them, we're making the cake for us.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a big subtle difference, that is. But this cake's being made for us, and we're going to make this an amazing cake, whichever flavour you want, whether you're a chocolate head or a vanilla sponge kind of person, or a carrot cake, whatever kind of cake you want, we're making it. Because we're individuals, we're all going to make our own cakes. But during this next year, certainly, we're going to see some amazing things happening that we never thought possible. But we've also got to bear in mind what we've just been talking about. The moon landing, 9/11. While you're in the middle of that, observing it, you're being drawn in, and your energy's being taken, and you're not concentrating on making your own cake. You're looking at, the cake factory, and they're starting to feed you their cakes. No. Need to take the step back. I feel, I need to. I'm not telling the audience they need to, but I need to take the step back to concentrate on making my cake, so I can walk towards the future I want and take the steps that I want mindfully, and not be led into some kind of alleyway that has been pre-programmed by the writers. Because certainly it's like watching, I mean, in England we have Coronation Street and EastEnders, and I don't know what kind of soaps you have in Spain, Gordon.
I have no idea. I don't watch any, but the same horrible ones.
Yeah, the same. Well, if you can imagine, the soap writers are running out of storylines, and so it's getting more and more wilder to try and keep the viewership. It's trying, the ratings. They're fighting for the ratings at the moment. And as we step away from the ratings, the only thing they can do is up the ante. And we're going to be seeing this, but we're also going to be seeing things happening nationally that will affect everything going forward in a positive way. So we're going to see a lot of false flags. We're going to see all sorts of things going on that are really not nice and that do involve loss of life. And that's really sad. 3 train accidents in a week is absolutely ridiculous, And again, what we've seen in America, we can go into weather and weather manipulation, okay? And the climate thing. I'm not particularly going to talk about that because I know it's a hot potato on YouTube. But I will say that in 1891, the first patent for weather manipulation was filed in the patent office. 1891. So they could make it rain in 1891 whenever they wanted to. Do you not think that everything that's going on today is I don't think, certainly in my 54, 55 years of living on this realm, that the weather has ever been natural in my lifetime, let alone, who knows, in the last 100 years, So everything is manipulated. Everything is a manipulation and part of the control mechanism of what they've been doing and putting into us. And when you start to see that with all the research, it steps up that ladder, isn't it, Gordon? It steps up that ladder, and when we start to go up the ladder, the higher we get, often the better view we get, but also it gets more confusing.
Yeah, the more rungs on the ladder. Yeah. And it's been done on purpose as well. It used to, being awake and aware used to be very easy. 20 years ago, it was easy. It was very easy. There were some very core things that you had to learn, and then you knew everything. Bob's your uncle, Fanny's your aunt, and Tom, Dick, and Harry. That was it. And now it's like, whoa, where does the truth lie? Well, we don't even need to know. We don't even need to know. And as you were saying, Gary, our focus is we must pull away from everything, because the writers know that they've got very little time. Time is of the essence. They know that we must give them credit. They're not stupid. They know what the story is. They know what the plan is. They know the job that they've been given. They know what they've got to do. They believe in the hearts that they can win this, but they also know what they're up against. And so they know that they've got to try and get as many of us with them as they possibly can. That's the game. And so they will create as many stories that will capture us. They want to capture our attention. That's all. And so that's what they're in now. This is what this is all about. Try and scandalize the people as much, make people angry, make them disappointed, make them furious. Let's just keep them away from becoming spiritual and going on the inside and bettering themselves. Keep them earthbound. That's what they want. And so that's our job, is to keep away from that. Watch it. It's fine. Watch it. Be entertained, because it's entertaining. This is a soap opera. But don't become an actor in it.
Yeah. I think one of the biggest things that's just struck me, really, and you just said it as, in one word, spiritual. The biggest change from where we were when we were first doing our research, when it was easy, to now, is, although we probably were spiritual, I was not aware of the spirituality of myself and those around me. And since 2020 and what happened, I think there's been a huge shift towards spirituality and something that is a completely different frequency in almost beast or animal to where we were before.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a big change as well. You know, I was never particularly believing in a creator. I do now.
Sure.
You know, my creator is the creator, you know, and I'm connected to source, and source is who I connect, you know. People can use Jesus, God, whatever they want. The language has been used to separate us because, oh, you know, you haven't learned anything. You're a Bible basher still. No, it's just the language we're using to express the same thing. But again, it's this divide and conquer, isn't it?
Yeah.
But we have become, and I certainly have become, more spiritual over the last few years than I have been in my entire life. And that's not by mistake. There's a reason for that. That's an evolution of us that's really starting to take hold. And I'm seeing it with more and more people. How about you, Gordon? Are you starting to see an explosion in the spirituality of the individual?
Yeah. And I think what I've seen is, because when I first started going down this path, it was new age spirituality, which was sold as something great or everything. And what I've seen is that within our sort of realm, people are becoming, spirituality is a very, very individualistic thing. It ain't attached to groups. Everybody is finding their spirituality, and that's beautiful. And everyone's finding their faith, and that's beautiful. But what I'm also aware of is when you look, the attendance in churches in Spain is shooting up, in the UK is shooting up, all over the world is shooting up. Young people, the Gen Zs, are turning to faith. Why? Because they know the need to find something. They know that there's nothing that this earth can offer them and that they need something else. So I think, and they'll discover that the journey is not going through a church door. It can be, but the ultimate journey is going within. You can go through a church door and then go within and find your divinity within, you know? So yeah, I see that that's the route. It's the whole purpose of this. We come down here, we live in this earthbound, bam, bam, fine, and then we have to discover our divinity again so that we can start heading back again. That's what it's all about. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Gary, listen, I don't know how long we've been talking, but it was a good while now, haven't we?
Yeah.
And it's fascinating. I think that, you know, there are probably about 75 other subjects that we could go shooting down and talk about, but I've thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. And I think the point, and I'm sure you've got something to say on that. It's nice to look back at all of the stuff that we've learned and everything, and understand, you know, how silly it is. It's silly. It is stupid. Everything's stupid because the storyline is stupid, and it was always stupid, and we were put here to discover that it's stupid. And that's all that we've got to do. Once we know it's stupid and it doesn't make any sense, then we're safe.
Yeah. And I can't add to that, Gordon. I think you rounded that up perfectly, you know. And again, the show today was not about flat Earth. It was not about space travel. It wasn't about any of that. It was actually about this, your journey, and enjoy it. Enjoy yourself. Enjoy everything around you.
Yeah, beautiful. Okay, well, on that, I think, Gary, we can head off, and we'll see one another soon, undoubtedly, with something interesting to do. Yeah. Take care. Thank you, Gary. Thanks for your knowledge and sharing your time as well.
Pleasure, Gordon, and thank you. You know, it was a great chat, and I hope many people get something out of this that's very interesting. And for those that are fairly new to the channels, who aren't as seasoned as us, we've given them also a nice background of information to look at that's not toxic.
Yeah.
You know, it's a nice you know, you're going to get triggered. You're going to go through your own personal journey, but it's not toxic in the way that some subjects can be. So there we go.
And the space thing can be hilarious if you look at it with the right eyes. Yeah. All right, Gary, take care. You enjoy the rest of your day.
Bye, everyone.
Bye bye. Bye, everyone. Love you all.